commencement speaker, Dr. Bo Brock, class of 1990, graduated magna cum laude from Texas A&M University, College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. In 2004, he fulfilled the criteria for board certification and became a diplomate in the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners, certified in equine practice. Dr. Brock is the owner and operator of Brock Veterinary Clinic in La Mesa, Texas. He's operated this growing and thriving clinic since 1992. He typically sees approximately 10,000 equine patients a year and performs approximately 400 arthroscopies per year, 125 colic surgeries, and over 1,200 lameness examinations per year. He is an excellent equine veterinarian. So that makes him one of the busiest equine veterinarians in the nation. Over the years, his practice has grown to a staff of 6 veterinarians. But his talents don't stop with veterinary medicine. He's a popular speaker at veterinary meetings, and he gives not only scientific presentations, but also humorous speeches. He's a published humorist, and his columns about veterinary medicine are always well received. And he's also a popular speaker at student groups, from local gatherings to national meetings. And this is not his first commencement address. We're also pleased at this time to welcome several of Dr. Brock's guests in the audience, to include his wife, Carrie, their 3 daughters, his mother, Sandy, and her husband, Earl Mulliner. And I think there might be more out there, but he brought an entourage, which we're very excited about. I'm pleased also to inform you that Dr. Brock's daughter, Abby, has been accepted to Texas A&M Veterinary College, and this fall will join the class of 2018. So Dr. Brock's an Aggie, he's a leader, and he's an advocate for our veterinary interests. And I know you're going to enjoy his wisdom, his witty sense of humor, his enthusiasm for life as he shares this year's commencement address. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 2014 commencement speaker, Dr. Bo Brock.
It's amazing. Thank you for letting me come. I need to say some thank yous before I start. I want to thank my mama for coming. I want to thank President Hussey and Miss Morgan and Mr. Adams, who's from Cahoga, Texas, which is a suburb of La Mesa. Thank you for having me, Dr. Green, most of all, for inviting me to get to talk to you all. I know that you can't tell, but I can't see you at all because these lights are so incredibly bright that they're up here. I don't even know if there's anybody there, which kind of makes me feel better. Other than Dr. Colin for representing the TV and May, what a great group that is. And I want to start off by saying there's 2 groups of people here today. 24 years ago, I sat where you all are. My mama sat right over there. My wife, who's been with me for 30 years, sat with me, and it was a big day for me. You walk across this stage and shake some hands. Your first name changes to doctor for the rest of your life. It's a big deal. I made my mother call me Dr. Brock. For a long time. Sometimes I still do it. But what I want to do is I want to start off and I want to talk to 2 groups of people. That we got the graduates, and I'll talk to you all in a minute. But first I want to talk to the rest of you, the people that love them. And that's what you're here for, because you love them. So we got 2 groups of people. We got the graduates and the people that love them. So we'll talk to the people that love them first, okay? Because I don't think you realize what these people have gone through to get to today. So I'm going to read you some stuff I looked up on the infallible internet and give you an idea of what these people have gone through. Every year in Texas, there's 1,721 high schools. And in the neighborhood of 12,000 juniors and seniors proclaim that someday they want to be a veterinarian. 8 years ago, 12,000 people wanted to become a veterinarian, and when the race was over, this 133 is all that was left. These are some good. They made it to today, but let me tell you some more things about them. To get into this place, to just be accepted, the average one of them made 3 A's for every B in undergraduate school, or 6 A's for every C. So about a 3.7 is what their average grade point was, so they know how to study and they're smart. Let me tell you a little more about them. There's about 309 million people in America, and every year in America, 2,900 veterinarians graduate, which means that 1 in 2,412,000 people make it to be a veterinarian each year. Roughly 1 person for every citizen of the town of Dallas, Texas. Now let me give you some comparison to that. Every year in America, about 17,343 medical doctors graduate. That's 1 for every 17,500 people in America, or a town roughly the size of Tampa. Every year in America, 40,000 lawyers graduate, which is roughly 1 for every 7,000 people in America, or roughly a town the size of Tahoka, Texas. When these people finally got here, they averaged 22 hours per semester for 9 semesters over a 4-year period. Most of them had about 120 hours of undergraduate school, meaning that the average person sitting in the front here has over 300 hours of college, but they went to class for an average of 36 hours a week, class and clinics, giving them a total of 5,184 hours of lecture and clinics. And then they spent about 5,760 hours studying, giving them a total over the last 4 years of 11,000 hours of preparing. In undergraduate school, the average one spent 6,000 hours doing that. Over the last 8 years, these people have spent 17,000 hours getting ready for today. To give you an example of how much that is, I looked on the intranet for how long a gold medalist in the Olympic trains to win. Just the gold medalist, not anybody else. I found out that the 3 most time-consuming training things were figure skating, swimming, and gymnastics. The average gold medalist spent 6,700 hours training for the Olympics. These people are gold medalists. They are all stars. So I want to tell you, they have received the best training that is available in the world today to get to be able to do what they do. I know. I've been to other veterinary schools. I've spent lots of time with people from other places. A&M is the rock star of veterinary schools, and these people are about to pass. So what I want to do now is I want to invite the people that love them to join me and stand up, and just for a second, let's give them a hand. We're proud of you. Now it's time for me to talk to y'all. Whenever I was asked by Dr. Green to give this talk, I was actually here at the veterinary school, and I left to drive home, and I started thinking, what do I want to tell the people that are graduating from veterinary school? And I started driving home on Highway 6. And I went through all the things that the graduation speakers normally talk about, you know, the go get 'em stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Dream big, work hard, be consistently awesome. You know, I thought of all these things that I could talk about, but I really wasn't finding one that I wanted to tell you that was from my heart. It was very meaningful to me. I wanted to tell you something that after 24 years of being a veterinarian, I thought I might share with you that would give you some insight on how to be happy. And then it came to me when I got to Waco. I was driving through Waco, Texas, and I remembered something, and I thought, why did I not think of that? The American Association of Equine Practitioners met in Nashville, Tennessee this year. I was there giving a talk on hind-end lamenesses in horses. And it was a morning session, and I was there, and I gave the talk, and there was maybe 200 people there, all these big-brained horse doctors, and it's always scary when the talk is over, because they come up and ask me questions that I don't know the answer to, and I have to try to fib to get through it. And that's what happened as usual. They come up and ask me questions, and it's about lunchtime, and everybody's leaving the room, and there's one old dude that is sitting in the middle of the room, and he just sits there. And this is an old dude. I mean, he's not like, I'm not talking 55, I'm talking old dude. And he sits there and he never says a word. He'd been looking at me the entire time we were talking. I noticed that this guy was really paying attention, but he just sat there. So everybody had left now, and it's just he and I sitting in this room. And he comes up to me and he says, "Are you Bo Brock?" And I thought, we've been here for 2 hours. I'm the only guy talking, and it has my name on the door. What do you think? And he introduced himself to me, and he told me his name, and he said he's from upstate New York. I said, that's cool. He said, I've been a veterinarian for more than 50 years. I said, that's remarkable. He said, I came all the way down here to Tennessee just to see you talk. And I said, you're pretty interested in hind-end lameness? And he said, no, I don't work on horses anymore. And I said, that seems odd. I said, you got some relatives here in Tennessee? He said, no. He said, did you know there's not an airport in Lamesa? I said, yeah, I live there. There's not an airport. There is, but you can't land a big plane there. He said, well, I wanted to meet you because I wanted to tell you something. And he said, I didn't want to fly all the way to Lamesa, and I saw you were giving a talk, so I came here. He said, did I tell you I've been a veterinarian for more than 50 years? I said, yeah. He said, I graduated in 1960. How old were you then, Bo? And I said, well, I wasn't even born. He said, I come to tell you something. And I was quite interested now. I thought, what is a man that's 80-something years old, been practicing for more than 50 years, doesn't work on horses anymore, came to the American Association of Equine Practitioners meeting, sat to a terribly boring talk about hind-end lameness, want to say to me? And he said, I read your article, Bo, he called me Bo. He said, I read your article, and it's the best article I ever read in my life about being a veterinarian. He said it captures the essence of what veterinary medicine is. And he said, after 50 years of practice, I couldn't find a paragraph or a sentence or a word to describe it. But he said, that article is exactly what you need to tell everybody that graduates from veterinary school. He said, I got 50 copies of it sitting on my desk back at the clinic. We got 12 veterinarians. Every student that comes through gets a copy of it, and I make them memorize it, and they have to take a test over it before they leave. And I said, well, I don't know what article you're talking about. You know, I write articles for magazines all the time, and I really don't know why anybody would fly from New York about one of those articles. And he said to me, you know, the one you wrote in the magazine. And I said, well, which one, sir? I said, I don't know which one you're talking about. And he said, Leonard. He said, Leonard. I said, I know Leonard. I know that story. He said, in our place, we have what we call the Leonard philosophy, because we think it is the essence of veterinary medicine. And I'm in Waco, Texas, and I remember this old dude from New York sitting there waiting to hear, so he could talk to me and tell me what the Leonard philosophy was, and that it was the essence of veterinary medicine. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, sir, why don't we go somewhere and eat lunch, and we'll sit down and visit. He said, no, I'm going home. I'm an old man. And he turned around, and that was it. That was our conversation. And so I thought, you know, maybe I ought to just read you the Leonard story. Because I could tell it because I was there, but this guy made 50 copies and gives it to everybody, and maybe it does contain the essence of being a veterinarian. So here it is. I'm going to read it to you. It's not terribly long, but hold with me. Listen to me with both ears, because maybe you'll learn something. Starts off Leonard. Says, I had worked on Leonard's horses since they were 8 years old. Now, as I approached the two geldings from across a field of West Texas clover, they were 28. Leonard was a crusty old codger, had been a cowboy in Borden County for 75 years. It was all he'd ever known. His wife had died the previous September, and after they'd spent 55 years together, raising cattle and living off the land, their ranch house that they spent their life in got water from a windmill and electricity from the sun and wind. Their lives were as fulfilling as any I've ever seen. But this trip across the clover to catch the two old geldings was bringing tears to my eyes. These geldings had spent their lives serving Leonard and his wife, and they both worn out at the same time, and it was time to put them to sleep. Leonard stayed back in the barn. He had his arms draped over the top rail of the pipe fence and his hat pulled down over his eyes so we couldn't see the tears that were streaming down his cheeks. Leonard had arranged for his neighbor to dig a hole under the only tree visible for miles. The plot was a perfect place for these two old geldings to be buried. It was their favorite spot to spend the day. They could see their barn and get back to it in a hurry if they needed to. They could watch the cars pass on a county road in the distance. They could see cliffs and canyons to the west and watch the hawks ride the updrafts. These two critters loved to be in the shade that tree offered, and that's where Leonard wanted to be buried. It's an awful job to euthanize a man's best friend. All of the memories of rounding up cattle and the stories of how those horses had gotten Leonard out of a tough spot, those stories filled my mind as we laid the last one to rest in that hole. My trip back across that clover field to say goodbye to Leonard was a long one. I dreaded seeing his wrinkle-filled eyes, pouring the memories of how he loved these horses for 28 years. I came through the last gate and hung the halter on their hook in the barn. I patted Leonard on the back and told him it broke my heart for him to have to say goodbye, but I assured him he'd done the right thing. He looked up from under his hat, and the emotion of 28 years of friendship that was ending on that day poured down his cheeks. I'll be to town in a couple of days and I'll get you paid, Doc. Thanks for coming and doing that for me. You owe me nothing, Leonard. I couldn't live with myself if I charged a man to kill his friends. He said, but Bo, you drove 75 miles to get here. I got to pay you something. I paused there for a moment. Experiences like this are why I dreamed of being a veterinarian when I was a kid. I get to work with the salt of the earth. Folks who understand the bond between people, and it's the essence of what veterinarians do. And it has nothing to do with state-of-the-art equipment and making a lot of money. I kept those horses happy and going for most of their lives, and I was part of laying them to rest when their days were done. Leonard appreciated that. He knew that taking care of critters from start to finish is simply what the local veterinarian does. I came back from that little pause and I said, Leonard, you've been paying me for 20 years, my friend. This one's on me. So I have some notes here, and I usually don't follow notes, but I put pause for a second. Pause for effect. Pause to see what I thought after I read that again, because I haven't read it. In preparation for this, I haven't read it. I didn't want to read it again because I wanted to remember it the first time I read it again. And I guess the thing maybe that I think right now after I read it is there's more than 17,000 hours of preparation to be a good veterinarian. There is passion and emotion. And I can remember whenever I was applying to veterinary school, I was going to go for the interview. They told me, don't tell them you just love animals. Well, you're done now, okay? You've made it to the end of the finish line, and you can say it now. I'm doing this because I just love animals. And I want to take care of them. There is just something about taking care of a being that can't always take care of itself that to this day gives me a high that I get nowhere else in life. We get to take things and fix them. When I'm having a bad day as a veterinarian and think I'm wore completely out and my life is strung too thin, I look back on all the animals that would not be alive if they hadn't known me, and how many happy owners there are because Bo came into their life. And all of you get to do the same thing now. There's a fellow named Metzner. He wrote something that's always stuck with me. And I really hope if you ever come to La Mesa, Texas and spend 2 days at the veterinary clinic, you'll say this is the way Bo lives. He said the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence in whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he is always doing both. And if you're going to be happy playing doctor for the rest of your life and career that you've chosen, you need to make it to where people that come to see you with their animals stand back and say, I don't know if Bo is working or playing. He's having a lot of fun because he's got a passion for what he does. This is the last time as a group that you'll ever get lectured to. It is, and it's kind of funny, but you know, for the last 4 years, y'all sat through hundreds of lectures together. In fact, you've taken over 1,000 quizzes and tests to get to where you are today. And you think, I'm ready to get out of here and go, but no matter how many reunions you have, you'll never be together again at the same time. And I don't take that lightly. I'm privileged to get to be the last person that talks to you as a group. 24 years ago, I sat right out there where you are. Never dreamed I would get to come back here and talk to somebody who at the time was probably 2. And when I got done, I walked out these doors and everybody was out there, and my grandfather, who was my hero, he come up to me and he said, hey, turd head, that's what he always called me. He said, you've been going to school ever since I've known you. He said, and I can't believe you finally got finished with it. And then what he said to me next is what I'm going to leave you with today. He said, now, Bo, go out there and amount to something. So that's what I'm telling you guys. Go out there and amount to something. Thank you for having me.